Hello there. Today I'd like to talk about a little game called Minecraft. Perhaps you've heard of it. Nowadays, the game is stuffed with so many different updates, so many different things, creatures, blocks, whatever, that a lot of us might just take it for granted. For some of you, these things might have always been there, depending on when you first started playing the game. But what about when it didn't? What was it like before the Wither? Before the End? Before even the Nether? Today, I'd like to take you on a journey with me. A step back in time to the beginning of Minecraft, and slowly making our way across the versions. Let's go to a place where everything is made of blocks. We begin here in the oldest available build in the launcher, Java Edition Pre-Classic RD132211. Originally released on May 13, 2009, and it was called Cave Game. The only blocks here are grass and stone, which it looks like cobblestone, but I'll explain that in a bit. They can only be placed at specific levels, so like the grass will only go one layer, then cobblestone underneath, or stone, sorry, and then stone up top. That's it. There's no mobs, there's no health bar, no hunger bar, no tools, nothing but these two blocks. And every world is the same. There's literally no terrain generation besides cube. Let's move on. Next, we have RD132238. We now have the first mob, referred to as zombies in the code for now. It's got the same texture that would become the default skin known as Steve. This is due to them being taken from an unreleased game by Notch called Zombie Town. Likewise, the RD in the version name stands for Ruby Dung, another unreleased game where the grass and stone texture come from. During the version RD20090515, or March 15, 2009, the game was briefly renamed Minecraft Order of the Stone, and now we have actual cobblestone, dirt, wooden planks, and saplings. Grass takes on a texture more like what we recognize today, and the stone texture and cobblestone texture have been swapped, as we now have the actual stone texture that we would recognize today. The zombie mob is now referred to as the human mob, and we can spawn them by pressing G on the keyboard, which is best used for this.
Minions! Tonight we steal the moon!
Skipping ahead to Classic 0.013A03. God, that's a mouthful. Things still pretty much look the same. But first, you're going to notice the new FPS counter, and holy fuck, 2000 FPS. Also, the human mob only spawns if the player so desires, but that's not all. We can load the new terrain generation now. And look at it. This is starting to kind of look like Minecraft. There's no trees, sure. There's no mobs, besides the human. And there's no other features. But it's starting to feel familiar. And Bedrock exists by this point. The next playable version is 0.30. This version is, for some reason, stuck in creative, but here's what I found exploring. Trees. Clouds. And here you can see all the blocks available. Although these were added between the 13A03 version and now, we have the basics. Wool, the original 3 ores, iron, coal, and gold. There's glass, the stone slab, the original flowers, mushrooms, sand, gravel, iron blocks, and gold blocks. But gold looks way different than what you would remember if you never played classic Minecraft. Behold, the original gold texture. It's cheese. I mean, also the iron one looks a little different too, and once I get to show a picture of it, diamond Also, they have a weird early texture. I'm glad they fixed it later on. Oh, also, we have bookshelves, TNT, obsidian, and the sponge, which I used to do this. Because why not? There's supposed to be some mobs running around in this version, according to some photos on the wiki page, but I'm guessing they just don't spawn in the creative version. Next, we have the in-dev cycle. I'm going to kind of run through this quickly because the numbering system, for all three of these first couple editions, make no sense. So I'm just going to list everything that I saw in my research. The first version, 0.31, it's just taking over. Like, they went from classic to in-dev and they just kept the numbering system. 0.31 was released on December 23rd, 2009. There was a mob released called Rana. None of these... There's 3 more mobs that will come that kind of have the similar body to this thing. They, for some reason, didn't have animations, and this is probably why they ended up removed. So we had that thing, that fucking abomination. We got the torch. Armor got added, but if I'm reading correctly, it was only the textures and I guess the model. You couldn't create it, couldn't spawn it in, nothing. It just wasn't fully implemented yet. Fire was added, came after the torch, because that makes sense. And then we got flint and steel, swords, pickaxes, axes, shovels, the bow. Apples, I didn't see where those initially came in. They became edible at this point. Chests got added, and you could even make a triple chest back in the day by glitching it. The diamond ore and block are added, initially referred to as emeralds, but it was changed immediately. Gears are added, but would later be removed. Coal and diamond are now dropped from their respective ores, but for now, gold and iron are only obtainable through the in-dev house. Wooden, stone, and diamond tool variants are added. The stick gets added, and tools can now actually be crafted. Rana gets removed, and 2 new mobs come in. Steve and Black Steve. I wish I was making this up. I don't know why was this a thing. Thankfully, this did not stay that long. Golden tools, bowls, mushroom stew, gunpowder, string, feathers. Another one of these freakish mobs is added called Beast Boy, and it resembles Beast Boy. It drops 2 feathers upon death. Then Steve, Black Steve, and Beast Boy are just effectively erased, and it's replaced with the human mob model. I'd like to note by this point, there were zombies, skeletons, and creepers in the game. However, their hostile abilities were enabled and disabled a few times during their early development. So I guess there were some versions where you just find them just walking around, not giving 2 shits about you. The giant is added. It's literally just a giant zombie. I'm not sure if this thing ever spawned. We'll have to look into that into a later episode. Farmland is added for growing crops, along with the first crop, wheat. Hoes are added as a new tool, and bread becomes craftable. The day and night cycle gets implemented. Armor is now in the game, but it's purely cosmetic. It has no function just yet. Skeletons and zombies now burn in daylight, which, you would never think that was never a thing. They always burn in daylight now, unless they're wearing armor. Spiders stop attacking in daylight unless provoked. Furnaces are added and can now be used to smelt ores and cook pork chops, which were added in the same update. I'd like to note, in these old versions, when you could get iron and gold ingots, before the furnace, you would just take the flint and steel, light the ground, and throw the ores into the fire, which seems very dangerous. But yeah, now eventually we were given the gift of the furnace to just smelt our stuff for us. Now, the pork chops are not stackable, so you would have to literally dedicate entire chests to just one per slot. Granted, you did not have a hunger bar, so you only needed to eat if you got injured. But I'm guessing a lot of players were just like, if I live close to my spawn point, I can just die and then basically reset your health without having to cost food. And lastly, for Endev, we got paintings. And this came on February 23rd, 2010. This is all for now. Tune in next time when we see what happened in the InfDev cycle and beyond.